Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a special project. My son and I recently started building a deer stand out in the woods, and to complete the stand we need to build a couple parts. One of the most important ones is windows. Now you don't really have to have windows on your deer stand, but it helps to cut out noise and smell and keeps you warmer in the cold winter months. So there's lots of different ways you can build windows for your stand. You can buy them, you can put up just a sheet of glass, you can get refurbished windows. In our case, we want to get custom fit windows that hinge open, and so I'm going to walk you through my process for building those today by working on one of the windows. First thing you need to know, the parts for this required. It's a pretty simple build. For the window you can either get glass or acrylic. I'm using a sheet of acrylic, so this will be the inside of the window. This is a cheap piece of acrylic, the cheapest I could find at Menards. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch thick. The next thing you need is going to be a set of hinges. I again got the cheapest set I could find, but I went with the wider one with 3 connections. The hinges will go either at the top or the bottom. You can hinge the window both ways. It doesn't really matter how you do it. And the last thing you'll need is, of course, lumber or wood. There's a couple different types of wood you can get. The one most accessible to everybody that you'll know really well is dimensional lumber from your hardware store. This is pine untreated. For the window frames, you will need to get treated wood, which adds a bit to the cost, or you'll just need to take care to keep it dry and paint it. That's not what we're going to use though. I actually have access to a sawmill. I own a sawmill on our property and have lots of white oak. So this is unfinished white oak. It is not square 4 sides, but it's pretty close. I haven't run it through a planer or a jointer yet, which we will probably do. But you can see from the close-up look on the grain here, it is unfinished and pretty raw, but it's also really solid. White oak is a great choice because it is rot resistant and naturally will resist moisture. Not to be confused with red oak, which is kind of the opposite. It's a hardwood that absorbs moisture. It's porous. So we'll be using white oak. And when you finish it, this is square 4 sides, finished white oak. So this has been run through the planer and the jointer. So it'll look a little closer to this when we're done. So that'll be an extra step that you won't have to worry about, but it's a good way to go about it. So anyway, now that we got that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on the project. So you can see my shop vac stopped working. It's stopped picking everything up. So my guess is that's because my filter is still broken. But all right, so before I start working with the wood, I figured I would let this be a reminder to everybody to make sure you clean out your dust collection system. Well, I might have just broke that filter. Okay, now that I've got the boards through the planer, you can see that they're square 2 sides. They're nice and parallel here, but to fix the edge and to get them to be an equal length, I could run them through the table saw, but I have this Weaver jointer here, which tends to work pretty well. So I'm going to run them through the jointer on one of the sides to knock it down square. All right, I changed my mind. I'm going to use the table saw. So one trick to getting square boards with the table saw is you can actually use a level to run alongside with the board, and that'll pull it squares. Okay, with that cut on the table saw, it got us to the point where we have 3 square sides, so we've got a flat edge. And so the last step is just to set it and then get these all cut square to the same size. So anyway, I'll set that up and get that cut run through here. Okay, we're back here now with our square lumber for the frame, and that took a shockingly large amount of work, so I recommend store-bought lumber, but if you have lumber off the mill, that's what you'll use. Next step is to measure my frame. The window is going to be 24 inches wide by about 16 inches tall, so I want it to be inset inside of that for the frame so it's not too snug, but it fits nicely. So I'm going to take off about 1/4 of an inch, which should give me enough room to fit it in there. I'll measure that out now, then we'll get this cut so we can start assembling the frame. All right, so now that I got those cut, there's a lot of ways you can assemble the corners for the frame. And so I'll be using a self-centering dowel jig, a set of clamps, and glue to get them set up. You'll notice that the way that I'm gonna jig it up is gonna look a little bit different, and that's just because I had one piece was 1/4 of an inch too short, so I got creative a little bit with the way the frame's coming together. But you'll notice that it won't make any difference. It'll still come out square and it'll work great. Okay, so to start with, this is the self-centering dowel jig that I've got. I got this from Harbor Freight. Pretty well made, so I'd highly recommend this. This takes care of the centering part for you, so all you gotta do is pretty much line this up, drill your holes to the right size for your dowels, and you're good to go. All right, so now that I've got the frame set up, the next step is going to be to set up the inside window that'll get hung inside the frame. So to do this, I've taken one larger piece of stock that I've already cut down, and I'm gonna be ripping every 3/8 of an inch, a 1/2 inch deep channel where the acrylic will sit. And then I'll cut each of these at about 3/4 of an inch. It'll make sense after I run the cut. I went ahead and set the table saw to a 1/2 inch. It'll make sense here in a second, but I'll show you what we end up with. Okay, I just got done ripping those, and you can see my channels right here, each a 1/2 an inch. And so the next plan is I'm gonna split these along right around the middle, and this will end up with all of my frames from my actual window that will sit inside. All right, so I just finished ripping that board. The blade is 1/8 of an inch thick, which actually ends up working out perfect for 1/8 inch acrylic. Basically, it's made to just slide right in to the acrylic. All right, so once you've got your frame and your inside channel cut, you want to lay it out on the ground or on a table or workbench if you got one. Get your corners marked out, and then we'll cut these here and start to assemble it. Got all my miters cut for my frame, so the next step is just to measure out the acrylic. I don't know that I've ever found a great way that I love to cut acrylic, but this seems to be the least bad option, is to set the table saw real low and then run the acrylic through it that way. I cut the acrylic in the wrong direction. The acrylic is about 1.25 inches too short, which means I have a gap here on my right side. You can see it right here on the left side where I made my mistake. So here's all you need to do if you do that. So I'm not gonna waste this acrylic. Instead, what I'm gonna do is cut a block for the middle. That'll actually, this is a pretty big window and that'll stabilize it a little bit. So I'm gonna have a pane in the middle of this right here, and then I'll have it slide over to the left. So I'll have to chop this acrylic in half, cut a piece to fill, and then come over here on the side. So it's not the end of the world. Mistakes will happen, but take time to measure twice so you don't make my mistakes. Well, I've got the window cut and sitting on top of the frame, but as you can see here, I actually measured it wrong because, again, I don't really know what I'm doing and it's a little too big. And I had thought about trimming down the window and getting it to fit inside the frame, but I think this is actually better because I have this beautiful red oak and it's going to be sitting on the inside of the deer stand. So instead what I'm going to do is frame a ledge around the outside so the window sits flush against the box that I had built. So when I close it, it'll close firmly and I'll have a nice trim piece. We'll say this was on purpose, even though it was definitely an oversight that I made, but it'll work out just nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this so it fits the frame, and then I'll tack this in, and then we'll install the hinge and call this one done. All right, well, there you have it. I've got the trim around here. I think it looks actually quite nice. I ended up using the nail gun just because it's going to be sitting inside a deer stand and I wanted it to be stuck on there and strong. If I was doing anything else with it, we would have finished it cleanly, but this is going to be great. Now I've got the hinges. So I'm going to put the hinges on here, and then this one will be done, and then it'll be ready to go up in the stand. All right, well, here you have it. This is my deer blind window completed. This one is about 36 inches across and 20 inches tall on the window side. Then it's more than that with the frame, of course. I ran into a few snags along the way, but overall, it's not that bad. This is in one day, you could turn out a couple windows, no problem. If I had to do it again, would I buy windows or make them? Well, I'd probably buy them because this was a real pain to make this thing, mostly because I cut it wrong a few times. But if you've got time and a pile of wood, it's not a bad project. This one can actually open up or down. The frame and all the parts that'll be exposed to the weather were made with white oak that I took off our sawmill. And then the outer edge frame was made with red oak that I had sitting here just to kind of trim it up and cover up some of my flaws. So if you like the video, please take time to like and subscribe. And if you haven't already done so yet today, make sure to take time to get outside. Thanks for watching.